I watched over 600 minutes of Thomas Frank's Spurs, and I couldn't help but feel that every game he was bluffing. One match he was running a compact 3-5-2 against the Champions League winners, the next game he was using an attacking 4-3-3.
So we worked on a game plan that was a little bit different.
Just when I thought I'd figured out his system, he would completely change his style, almost like I was watching another team. But here's the thing, it's not random.
Everything I do, every decision I made so far, everything is for the long term. It's not about surviving one game or 1 year or 18 months or what is the average, no.
Thomas Frank is a very versatile coach. In fact, that's one of the biggest reasons that he was brought in as Ange's replacement.
I think one of the big differences between Thomas Frank and Ange Postecoglou, the man who'll be succeeding, is his tactical flexibility.
Ever since his Brentford days, he has shown that he can adapt his style based on the opposition. And we got a great glimpse into this at the Super Cup.
I knew that we had to do something a little bit different against PSG. Medical terms, the operation succeeded but the patient died.
People will make fun of this quote, but Spurs really took the best team in Europe all the way to pens. And unless you support Chelsea, you can't mock Spurs for losing in that final because they actually won a trophy to get there. I'm looking at you, Arsenal fans. People will focus on the jokes because Spurs blew a 2-goal lead both in regular time and pens, but you could clearly see Thomas Frank's influence. Set pieces were a big part of his game plan.
The set pieces from all areas of the pitch, but we will have focus on set pieces no matter what.
Both center backs scored, and with 9 players in the starting 11 over 6 feet tall, it's clear that Frank wants Spurs to dominate in the air.
Another thing that was very positive was the set pieces. Obviously we knew there was a area where we can hurt. PSG worked very hard on it, so big credit to the players and almost gave us the win.
Long throws, clever free kicks, and targeting overloads in the box are all a part of the Thomas Frank experience. In the 2025 season, no Premier League team scored more headers than Frank's Brentford. They created the best chances from set pieces, and only Liverpool had a better conversion rate. On top of that, they gave up the fewest goals from set pieces too. Thomas Frank knows that these cheap goals can make all the difference in the world. And I think Spurs fans are gonna love that new mentality. The players they have mean set pieces could become a real weapon this season.
Mickey van de Ven in Udine!
Frank loves creating these overloads, and you could see Spurs trying to find the free man. It paid off again with their second goal.
The new captain makes it 2!
Frank wants the team to be more direct, and you can see the change in style. It was obvious when Kevin Danso won the team's long throw contest in training, and he was launching those things from both sides in the final. The way Spurs use the ball is also new. Under Ange, they almost never went long from the back. Tottenham played the fewest long passes of any team in the Premier League in the 2025 season, sticking to that philosophy regardless of personnel or the opposition. Against PSG though, Vicario's passing map showed the complete opposite. He was told to hit it long to beat PSG's press. It worked, and it made Spurs much less predictable. Luis Enrique loves to press high, so much so that PSG even kicked the ball long right from kickoff to trap the opponent in their own half. Thomas Frank didn't let that happen. He told Spurs to play over the press instead, and for most of the match, it worked. Defensively, Thomas Frank showed that he's not afraid to switch things up. After struggling against Bayern in preseason, he switched to a 5-3-2 against PSG, which made the team more solid while still pressing hard.
Day after, I guess, the Bayern game, it was already, I knew that we had to do something a little bit different against PSG.
Formations are versatile, so you can view it as a 3-back or a 5-back. It literally changes on the fly. Paulinho, Bentancur, and Sarr were excellent in the midfield, chasing everything and forcing PSG wide. Then Spurs' wingback, Jed Spence and Pedro Porro, did a great job on PSG's fullbacks, Hakimi and Nuno Mendes, stopping them from pushing forward and controlling the game. Considering the PSG fullbacks were both in the top 10 nominees for the Ballon d'Or, and the fact that they dominated with goals and assists, I thought it was such an impressive job from Spurs' fullbacks. It showed that they can compete at the highest level with the most elite players. In the middle, Tottenham kept things tight and hard to play through, like my bumhole when Mickey van de Ven made that goal line clearance in the Europa League final. And whenever Spurs won the ball, they broke quickly through the center, with Kudus and Richarlison driving the counterattack. Now the main takeaway from that match was that this is a very flexible Spurs team. Pressing high is a non-negotiable.
I think the high pressure is a non-negotiable when we went man-man all over the pitch in quite a few good times.
But now they can mix it up. They can sit deeper, they can go long, and they can punish teams with set pieces. The real challenge will be breaking down more defensive side, but early signs show that Frank's Spurs won't be one-dimensional. That adaptability could be their biggest strength this season. One of the main reasons that Spurs hired Thomas Frank was that he can adapt. And as we saw in their performance against Burnley, they can punish teams. That was something that Ange Postecoglou struggled with, and it showed last season when Spurs conceded 65 goals, their worst defensive record in over 30 years. They were especially poor against the top side, losing 14 of 16 games against teams in the top 8. To put into context, that's about as bad as Southampton did. To fix that, we saw that Frank went with a 5-3-2 against PSG, a formation he also used at Brentford. That's what he's great at, switching styles depending on the opponent. At Brentford, his team would sit deep in a low block, and yet they still ranked among the best at winning the ball high up the pitch. Against PSG, we saw glimpses of that too. Spurs pressed hard at times, even while under pressure. This game showed that Spurs have more quality than what people give them credit for. They might not have a squad full of big names right now, but they do have a lot of talented young players that Frank can develop into stars. Now, the one guy who already has the potential to be a superstar is Mohamed Kudus, who was electric on his debut. He was always pressing, he was able to keep the ball under pressure, and he was the one who won the free kick that led to the opener. Then Jed Spence, fresh off a new contract, was excellent at left wing back. Keep in mind that's not even his favorite position, and yet he was locking down the best right back in the world all game. Sarr played as the most advanced midfielder, and while he might not be the most creative guy to play in that number 10 role, his ability to eat up ground and press was essential in winning the midfield battle. And it wasn't just them. Richarlison, Pedro Porro, and Paulinho all played their role, while Romero and Van de Ven not only defended well but also got the goals. If the younger players keep improving, Spurs might already have the star quality they need. Against PSG, they were the underdogs. Against Burnley, they were the favorites, and it showed in their style of play. Tottenham cruised past Burnley with a 3-0 win. Richarlison scored twice with 2 brilliant finishes, and Brennan Johnson added a cheeky no-look goal to wrap it up.
Thomas Frank has gone straight away what he did at Brentford in terms of getting balls up a lot earlier to the forward players, getting balls into the box a lot earlier in terms of crosses.
But above everyone, it was Mohamed Kudus who stood out again, showing his skill and creativity all game. It was his Neymar-esque touch and cross to Richarlison that caught everyone's eye. Now, some people question Frank's decision to start youngsters Bedival and Archie Gray in midfield, but the pair proved him right.
They adapted because if you remember in midweek against PSG, they played 5 at the back. They went to 4 at the back. And they played young Gray and Bergvall in the midfield yesterday, which that was a change around from PSG. So I think he perhaps may do that when they're going in at home against teams they would expect to beat. They might play 4.
With Maddison out long term and Kulusevski also sidelined, Richarlison is going to be a key player this season. And if his recent form is anything to go by, he's ready to step up.
I'll tell you who intrigues me, Richarlison. I look at him sometimes and you think, oh, he's got so much talent.
After a poor 17th place finish last year and constantly losing to teams that they should have been in the Premier League, this win was exactly the start that Frank and Tottenham needed to kick off the new season. There is a sense of optimism around the club, and it's for good reason. Thomas Frank had already shown during his time in Brentford that he can manage at the top level, leading the Bees to 2 top half finishes in 3 years. He did that while working with a tiny budget, by the way. Now he's got his big chance at a bigger club, with the job of bringing Tottenham back as a real force in the Premier League. At Brentford, Frank's teams always knew how to find a way to get goals. In the Championship, they were the top scorers in both of his full season, playing attacking football and keeping a lot of the ball, around 56% possession on average. His team also scored more goals than every other team in those campaigns.
Especially here in the Championship where we were the dominant side. I think that 2 years in a row we scored the most goals in the Championship and were one of the most dominated, most attacking teams there.
But he completely changed his philosophy and style as soon as he got to the Premier League. He became far more pragmatic.
We think the team is better with a back 3, back 5 when we need that sometimes. Going into a league that we know is maybe the toughest league in the world, and you need to be able to defend well.
They went from dominating the ball to becoming a counter-attacking side. Look at this chart. It very much shows what Brentford's identity was. Go long, go fast, and play direct. In all 4 of their top flight seasons, they were one of the top 5 teams for the number of long passes that they played. Their peak came in the 2023 season, where 16.6% of their passes were hit long, often aimed at Ivan Toney. In 2023, I saw him use a 3-4-3 with Wissa on the left, Josh Da Silva on the right, and Bumo as a right wing back and Toney up front. But then when Toney left, Frank changed his system up again. Initially he started with a 4-3-3, but realized tweaks were needed, hence why according to The Athletic, 4-2-3-1 was actually the most commonly used formation by the Dane in the 2025 season. Instead of long balls, he transitioned to having Damsgaard feeding through balls to the fast wingers, players like Wissa and Mbeumo, and it worked wonders. There was a reason both of these guys reached double figures. I believe the hope is that Thomas Frank can use his track record of developing talent to help the young stars of Spurs. Players like Bergvall, Archie Gray, and Mikey Moore can take the same leaps that we saw taken by Mbeumo, Wissa, and Tony. I personally think we are going to see a shift back to the way his Brentford team played in the championship, because when you look at this chart right here, you can see that over time, his Brentford side was moving further towards a slow and intricate style, the same style that they used to get promotion to the Premier League. Now that Frank has more access to talent and money, I think he will try to have his sides keep the ball more. But the good thing is that he will also likely encourage his players to not be afraid of being direct. Under Ange, Tottenham played only short passes. Only Man City had less long passes played than Spurs. But under Frank, we could see elements of his Brentford side when it comes to putting long balls into the channels to create opportunities. And believe me, his strategy works. Look at where Brentford ranked in expected goals per shot. They make up 3 of the top 10 seasonal averages. So don't get it twisted. Frank's teams do not just hoof the ball for no reason. Off the ball, Frank likes his team to create overload, especially out wide. This way they can crowd the space and mess up the opponent's rhythm. We've already seen him ask Spurs to press high at times in a man-to-man system, trying to win the ball back quickly up the pitch. That means holding a risky high line, which isn't actually that different from what they were already doing under Ange Postecoglou. In fact, Spurs and Brentford were almost identical in this area last season. The difference is though that Thomas Frank picked and chose the right moments for his team to press. Unlike Ange, who had the team press non-stop, no matter the score, no matter the opposition. This is actually a good sign for Spurs fans because a big reason for all their injuries in the 2025 season was the high intensity pressing. The way Frank wants to see his team without the ball is much more sustainable, especially given how many competitions Spurs are in. In terms of formations, Thomas Frank likes to rotate between a back 3 and a back 4. His preference is a 4-3-3. It's what he was initially using with Brentford at the championship level. But then in the 2020-2021 season, injuries pushed Frank to switch to a 3-5-2 late on. And that change actually ended up guiding Brentford to promotion through the playoffs. As I showed you guys earlier, ever since he got Brentford up to the Premier League, he relied on that formation more, especially against tough, possession-heavy teams. Then in the 2025 season, Frank moved away from the back 3 again, starting that way in just 4 of Brentford's 38 league game matches. He also moved away from the 4-3-3, using it only 8 times. Instead, he preferred a 4-2-3-1, in which he used in 22 games, with Damsgaard playing as the number 10. Now interestingly, Damsgaard was ranked first among top flight midfielders in the 2025 season for possession wins in the final third, which shows you just how much Frank wants his team to press and be aggressive in duel. Now that he has more quality at his disposal, I think we're going to see Thomas Frank use the 4-back formation way more because in the majority of games, Spurs will be the favorites. We have also seen which players are going to be able to really cook under the Danish manager. Frank likes pace, power, and mobility in the forward area. It's why Ollie Watkins, Tony, Mbeumo, and Wissa have all been success stories under his guidance. So it should come as no surprise to see Richarlison and Kudos playing so well. Since Frank likes his team to be direct, it also benefits a player like Pedro Porro. He was by far and away Spurs' most effective crosser in the 2025 season. The Spain international executed 34 accurate crosses in the previous season, with no one else in the squad producing more than 9. Frank's Brentford ranked 2nd in the 2025 season for successful long passes, and Porro is fantastic in that department as well, having racked up 84 successful long passes, once again far more than anyone else at Spurs. Now that we have looked at his tactics, it's also important to analyze Thomas Frank's personality. He is full of energy on the sidelines. He's not the kind of coach who just stands and watches. He's not trying to aura farm like Ancelotti. He shouts instructions, he waves his arms, and claps when his team breaks through the opponent press. He's always in motion, talking to his assistants, pointing things out, and sometimes even pulling out a tactics board during breaks in play to show the players exactly what he wants. Frank prepares for every match in detail, even planning his substitutions before the game starts.
And in that plan A, I got 5 subs. Plan.
But he also has that fire in him. In a match against Wolves in January of 2022, Frank was so upset after the final whistle that he confronted Joao Moutinho and Ruben Neves. The ref gave him a yellow card and Frank simply said, "You might as well show me the second yellow," and he got sent off. But despite these fiery moments, Frank is actually pretty calm after a loss. He stays composed and thoughtful, unlike Ange, who sometimes did let his frustration turn into drama. When Brentford won, Frank would quietly enjoy a nice glass of red wine, and no matter what happened, win or lose, he had one rule: the team gets 24 hours to feel the emotion. After that, it's back to work. Frank had also built a nice culture at Brentford. no egos, no drama, and he had this thing called the no dickheads policy.
And you mentioned the no dickheads policy. What is a dickhead?
A dickhead is what you can say. It's difficult to explain, but definitely a person that don't care about his teammates or staff members.
For him, a player's personality matters just as much as their skill. That balance of performing on the pitch, but also respecting those around you, is the heart of his leadership. After finishing 17th in the last season, Thomas Frank and Spurs can only go up from here. His high energy style fits the squad well, and the players should enjoy his direct approach, but they'll also need to get used to switching tactics depending on the opponent, something that Frank really expects from his team. One big change for him though will be the schedule. At Brentford last season, he managed 43 games. Spurs played 60. That's a lot less time for preparation, and Frank and his staff will have to adjust quickly. Still though, there is no doubt that he's earned the chance to lead a big Premier League club. The challenges will be new. More games, higher quality opposition in the Champions League, and bigger expectations. But Frank already looks like a strong fit for Spurs. One player who sadly won't be a part of his journey though is Heung-min Son. To see just how much of a legend he was for Spurs, you have to watch this documentary right here.